Hello, and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Ridley, and this is my kitchen, how I found it. And we are making our last little stop in Mexico today, something super fascinating, and also a little difficult. We definitely did not end on an easy note. So what we're gonna be trying today is a Oaxacan recipe called mole negro. Now, mole is something I've been familiar with. I have never actually tried it before, nor have I tried making it before. My understanding is it's sort of a slow-cooked chocolate tomato-based sauce with a whole bunch of different flavors and ingredients that have all been mixed and melded together over time, and also has a ton of different personal or regional variants on it. So I've selected a version of this that I'm hoping is going to be just super tasty. There's a couple of things that I'll note along the way just to see where we could have diverged and what might have been different, but I'm thinking that this should at least work out for us and be pretty good. So it is going to be based around chicken. So I have got some bone-in skin-on chicken thighs here. There are 6 of them total, but 2 of them came from a bird that I broke down myself, so they still have the legs on them. I just left the legs on there. I think that should be fine. Then that is going to be cooked with a little bit of garlic. So I've got a full bulb right here, and then we'll mix that with some salt to create a paste, and that will be the main cooking ingredient and flavoring for the chicken itself. Now, the mole, which is going to be the primary flavoring ingredient of the dish overall, is going to be a very complicated sauce made of a lot of different steps, a lot of toasting of things, and then it gets blended together at the end to make, theoretically, something super good. To start with, I have got 3 different types of chilies here. So we have cascabel, I have guajillo, and then I also got mulatto. Now, all of these I have pulled open, and I have tried to get out as many of the seeds as I can, and I got rid of the stems on all of them, so this is just the flesh of these chilies. Now, these are going to be the main sort of darkening agent and also get a lot of the complexity of the flavor from the mole. So we're going to be cooking these over a high dry heat until they turn black, which is where the name comes from, the mole negro. And then after that, we're going to put them into water to revive them and hopefully get off all of the ash and carbonized particles that are on the front. So we're going to see if we do a good job on that, but that's going to be the most difficult part. From there, a little bit more familiar is there's some vegetable items that are going to be cooked at a high temperature as well. We're going to put them in the broiler, but a lot of times these would have been cooked directly over an open flame. So I've got a plantain here. I have some tomatillos, 2 full bulbs of garlic, a half of an onion, and then I've got 3 Roma tomatoes just to give a nice sort of vegetable mix there. And then on top of that goes a whole bunch of spices that all get toasted and blended in different ways and made into this final mixing paste. So those are going to be bay leaf, avocado leaf, which I've not used this one before, so interested to know how that's going to impact the flavor. A little bit of oregano and thyme, so those are kind of the leafy herbs. And then that is going to be paired off with a little bit more of the aromatic herbs. So in here we have some cinnamon, we've got a small slice of ginger, and then we have some allspice berries. I've taken about a sliver of maybe 1/8 of a nutmeg, and also a few cloves too. So those are going to add a really nice bite underneath everything. A little bit of sweetness comes from raisins, and then walnuts and almonds. And these are all going to be toasted together. And then to finish it all off, it's going to be mixed with Mexican chocolate, which this is chocolate, a little bit of sugar, and cinnamon. They come in these round discs, and so you just crunch that up. You can break it pretty easily, and it is fairly crumbly, so it lends itself to chunking like this. And then I also have this big bowl here of chicken broth. Now this is homemade chicken broth, which is why it's got the floating bits of fat in there, because I made it from scratch and I'm fine with a little bit of extra fat content in there. If you get this from the store, you will expect it to not have the floating chunks of fat, but just wanted to call out why it might look a little different. All of that gets cooked up and mixed together. You finish it up with a little bit of sugar for sweetness too. You thicken it with bread. So we're gonna actually break this up and then use that as the thickening agent at the end. And then the oil that we're gonna be using to sort of bind these all together and also do the cooking is just going to be some nice clean lard. Oh, and sesame seeds. The sesame seeds go with the nuts. Okay, so that's everything. It's a lot of stuff. And these recipes are known for being very, very intensive, lots of stirring, lots of paying attention to them. So I think what we're gonna do is I'll get things set up back over by the stove, and we are going to, well, first I'm gonna cut up the vegetables and get them set on a tray for broiling later, because that's an important part of making sure that they get that char to them, since I don't have an open fire to put them over. Once we've done that, I will set back up over on the stove. We're gonna go through all of the toasting of the ingredients, which is gonna go in several waves to make sure that there's not specific crossovers. And then after that, it gets blended together and we'll cook the chicken and mix it all up. So give me a quick second to reorganize for the vegetables. I'm gonna get a tray over here ready to receive them. I'm just gonna cut them into quarters and eighths, just into smaller pieces to allow for more of that char from the broiler. So see you in just a minute. Okay, so the important part of this is not going to be any precision on the cuts at all. It's just going to be making sure that you've got fairly uniform sized pieces that are going into the oven. The tallest part of any piece is going to be the part that is going to be broiled first and is going to be closest to the heat element. And so what you're gonna wanna do is get these to a fairly similar size and then keep an eye on them, and I'll rotate them throughout the broiling process to make sure that we've got an all over char and it's not just one part of it. Same thing with the onion, into quarters here. Leaving the skin on is totally fine and absolutely expected. There's plenty of flavor in that. Can't actually speak too much to plantains, as I have not used them very much in cooking, but I do know that they are a lot sturdier as far as their overall constitution than a banana, and so it's not going to be quite as mushy, and it should hold its shape a lot better as well. And I'm assuming that I can just cut these into similar sized slices as well to get a little bit of a browning on them. Right. Now for the garlic, I like to just do a cut right through the half of the head, and then we can put each half on here, and that way the heat gets into the center of each clove. And again, you can keep the paper with it. It's not going to cause any issues whatsoever with the final dish. And then tomatillos. These ones I got are fairly small, so I'm only going to quarter the big one here, and then the rest I will keep as halves. Tomatillos are also another one that I haven't cooked too much with, so I don't want to try and give too many tips where I have no experience to give them. This one's getting quartered too. All right, so this is all of the garlic, the plantain, tomatoes, onions, the tomatillos. All of this is going to be ready for broiling when we get to that step, but it's just easy to put it on a tray like this, and that is all you have to do. Now we can move back here, and then I'll walk us through each step of toasting and getting ready for the final mole sauce. This next series of steps would normally be done in a comal, which is like a flat-bottomed pan or griddle that's oftentimes put directly over heat and is used to cook tortillas and things like that. The closest that I'm gonna have is just this large flat-bottom pan. It's stainless steel, but I should be able to get a high dry heat, which is the point of it. So you want something that's got a large flat surface. You don't necessarily want anything that's got ridges or grooves to it. and you want something that can deal with high heat, so probably not a non-stick pan in this particular instance. Now I'm getting this going over medium heat right now. As that heats up, I'm then going to add the chilies to them in batches, and we're going to cook each batch of those for probably 8 to 10 minutes, just turning it over to make sure that we don't burn it, but we are getting a really nice, rich toasting to it. So this whole series of dry heat toasting for all of the ingredients is something that you want to make sure you take the time on it. You want to make sure that you don't go too high on the heat so that you burn anything, because then you're going to end up with a bitter or acrid flavor. And instead you want to focus on trying to develop and bring out some of the nuanced flavors which theoretically should be going on when you're doing this. So what I'm going to be aiming for with most of these is to check the aroma of the ingredients as they're going through the toasting, and they should slowly release some oils and increase their aromatics and be noticeably more aromatic, and that should then be able to transition into the final dish. So first batch in, and I am just going to be making this so that I can set them down just about as flat as I can. I'm not going to be crowding the pan at all. And then I'll keep an eye on them and be turning them over the next 8 to 10 minutes. Okay, so these have all toasted up really nicely. You see that the red has gone almost all the way out of the guajillo chilies, and instead there's got this really nice darkness to it. So I'm gonna put those aside for now, and then dump a couple of those bits there, because there were a couple of seeds that didn't make it out in my earlier cleaning, and I don't want those to end up too deep in. So then the next one is going to be some white sesame seeds. Now for these ones, I'm just going to be putting them in there and going until they darken a little bit, and they might start to pop a little bit, but this is just to give them a little bit of toasting. So again, this is going to be a lot of movement on these, keeping them moving so we do not get any burning to them. And then once they get to that toasted point, we'll pull these right out, and we're going to add the raisins in, and the raisins are going to cook for about 2 minutes toasting that way. And for those, we're going to see, there we go, already a little bit of toasting to them, a little bit of popping. That was very fast. Ooh. And we can make a bit of a mess too. All right, give me a quick second. All right, then raisins in, and this is probably going to go for about a minute, maybe 2 minutes, but for these ones you just want them to plump up a little bit. But once again, you're going to want to keep movement on these for almost the entire time that they're in the pan to prevent any burning. Oh yeah, actually, so as you're cooking them, you can see that they are starting to almost inflate. And I believe that that's because there's a tiny bit of moisture left inside. And as the steam is expanding, it's causing them to plump up a little bit. So that's what you're looking for. It's like this one right here, very, very popped. I have never cooked raisins like this before, so I wasn't sure what to expect. And then after the raisins, we can do a few things all at the same time. So I'm going to be adding in the walnuts, the almonds, and the more aromatic spices. So the ginger and the clove and the cinnamon all go in together. So get some nuts in there. We have our ginger pieces, cinnamon, cloves, allspice, and nutmeg. And as with everything else here, we're doing a nice toasting on it, so you're going until the aromatics really come out of it. This one didn't have a really good visual cue that I was reading on, so for this one I think I'm just going to be keeping an eye on them and preventing them from burning. Oh wow, and the scent is festive. Give that a few seconds. It's an intensely aromatic mix. Hamburger. Ja, was ein Schmutzchen. All right. This one, pull them off the heat once they have toasted for a bit. All right, now this next one is going to be very brief. So several places that I saw were talking about in a matter of seconds on it, in the 10 to 15 second range for some. So I'm going to get all of these together so that I can put them all in really rapidly. We've got the avocado leaves, bay leaves, thyme, and oregano. And already they've got a strong, immediately it's got a strong aromatic response. All right. So I see why it was just for a few seconds on that one. Oh man, that was intense. All right, all that can go together. And I am going to grab a little spatula and scoop the rest of it out. Okay. So for now, we have got a number of toasted items that we can set off to the side. Our next step is going to be preparing the garlic paste to go with the chicken. We're going to start the chicken cooking in here because it's going to be a very low and slow cook that takes about an hour. And then while that's cooking, we can do a couple of extra steps with the chilies and those vegetables that we cut up earlier in the broiler to get those ready for the other side of the sauce. So let me do some quick clean down and reworking, and we'll be back in just a minute. All right, so for the garlic paste to go on the chicken, I just have a teaspoon of salt inside my mortar here. I'm gonna add a couple of cloves of garlic, and then you just use the mortar and pestle to squish it into a paste. I'm going to slowly add more garlic as I continue going so that I can control the amount that's in there. Once that's done, I just add a little water to the paste to get it out of here, and I can move it directly into the pan with the chicken. If you have a really quick small blender or food processor, you can use that as well. Traditional way would be to use mortar and pestle, but it'll come out the same. Okay, so I ground up that entire bulb of garlic. I've mixed in some extra water into here so that it's easier for me to move. And then we are going to just add this directly into that pan that we were using from earlier. And then I'm going to spread this around the entire bottom layer here. Try to get it spread evenly. And then we are going to just bring this up to a simmer. Over medium heat. Should be very quick because it's a very, very thin layer. But then we'll add the chicken onto that, skin side down. We're going to let that cook until almost all of the juices here have evaporated, and that we should start to see a little bit of the fat from the chicken rendering out onto the pan. We're going to turn the heat to low from there, and then just do a very low and slow cook for the next 45 to 50 minutes. That's going to give us the really tender chicken to go along with our mole sauce. All right, we've got a simmer. So let me wedge these in here, try and get them into a single layer. Probably a little bit more of a tight fit than I would want. Having these extra legs on there might bite me in the end, but all right, we've got that on there. Okay, so I'm just going to let this reduce down for a couple of minutes, and then once I feel like I've got most of that liquid evaporated, actually even right now I'm going to start turning it down, but we're going to let this cook for a very, very low, slow time, turning them occasionally and just making sure that it gives it a lot of time to really break down all of that extra tissue and hopefully end up with super, super tasty, tender, garlicky chicken as a base for the mole sauce to go on. Wish us luck. Chicken is going to drop down to low. And then every 10 minutes to 15 minutes or so, I'm going to come back and give it a flip just to make sure that we are cooking both sides, because we definitely don't want raw chicken on half of it. So then, while that's going, I'm going to set the broiler on, and then we can grab our tray of prepared vegetables from earlier. And so I'm going to put this in under the broiler so that we can start the char on those. And then after that, we are going to even further char the chilies. So I am going to go ahead and take these and start placing them on another prepared tray here so that we can swap them out real quickly for the vegetables at the end and get these super, super charred as our last stage before they go into the sauce. Time to check here. Ooh, yes. All right. So definitely got some char on some items. I am not quite seeing some of these. Maybe the tomatillas need a little bit more, but I'm going to pull the plantains out, and I'm going to pull the garlic out, and maybe a little bit of the onions here, but we are almost there for sure. And then I am going to go through this as well and just pull out those blackened skins. So that way we don't end up with too much of the bitterness of them in there, but we will still get the extra flavor that they had. All right, this is going to go back in. I'm going to do a little bit of skin removal there, and we will be, well, I think this one's good. We will be back in a bit. All right, so I pulled all the little garlic cloves out of there. We've got that really nice char on the plantains, which I'm just gonna keep. And I think that should have given it enough time. Yes. So we've got a really nice char now on the rest of the tomatoes, the the tomatillos, the onions. That's all got a real good char to it. So I'm happy with that. Now we can grab our chiles and stick them in there. And this one, we are supposed to go until they are black. It also said I might want to open a window in several recipes, so gonna do that. But we'll be back in a bit. I'm gonna give this another turn and just keep an eye on some chilies. So, literally moments after I put them in, they caught fire. And that's something that it said that I could do in some of the recipes, is take it outside, light them on fire. So, I'm going to count it as a success, and I'm moving them into water. An important step of the process to revise the flavor. Woo, we've got a lot of dark color on those chilies. So I'm going to fill this up with water, and I'm going to let them soak for a little bit while the chicken continues cooking. Now then we'll have some Negro. So, while this is continuing to cook, we have got our soaked chiles here. I just put a plate on top to try and weight them down into the water, so we can drain all of the liquid off. And the theory is that the soot particles and all of the things that will be bitter and ashy flavor-wise will get washed away by that soak, and you're left with the chilies. Now, I think that some of these, I didn't get to turn on them because they were not on fire. But some of them were on fire, so we had to pull this out. But I've got a really good color on this side, maybe a little bit more of a reddy color on this side. That is not quite what we're looking for, but the rest of these look just violently blackened. So we can take some of these, we're gonna add them into the pot. I'm probably gonna have to do this in a few batches, and that's fine. But we can add in some of the vegetables, garlic and the plantains, and then pretty much everything from earlier that we toasted. So the sesame seeds, the nut mixture, the spices, the raisins, everything's gonna go into here. What we are not going to be including is the bay leaves and the avocado leaves. So pull those out for now, but everything else is just gonna get mixed into here. And then I am going to go and grab the chicken broth from the table over here, add about a cup or so to this mixture. And then I am going to be using an immersion blender to just blend everything smooth. You can do this in a regular blender, you don't need the immersion blender, but my blender has a big old crack on the back side of it. I don't trust it in any way, shape, or form for hot liquids, so we're going to use this one just inside the pan. Oh, go. a little bit of the chicken broth. And the point of this is just to make everything smooth. So I'm going to be doing just a few chilies at a time. They're probably the toughest ingredient I've gotten there, and add a little bit in as I go. Take as long as you need to, because once again, this is going to be going for another 30 minutes still. Just take your time on it and make sure that you get everything as smooth as possible. Looks like it's going to take me a while here. So I did as good of a job with the immersion blender getting everything mixed up as I could. It doesn't do a super great job against some of the smaller items like the sesame seeds, so I can still see a few whole ones in there, but by and large everything got mixed in together. And I'm very happy to say that it doesn't have the reddy color that I was sort of expecting, given that some of them weren't fully toasted all the way through for the peppers. But I've got a really nice dark brown color to it, which I think should be even more accentuated with the chocolate and everything. So let's move forward with making sauce. So with this one, we are going to add our lard into a nice pan with some deeper sides to it. And we're just going to get this really, really nice and hot. Once that's hot, we're going to add our chili paste into it and then cook the mole down and reduce it until it's this really nice, thick, delicious mix. While that's in play, that's when we're going to be adding in our chocolate, our sugar, and another couple of cups of the chicken broth so that it has more flavor to reduce down. The chicken broth, we're probably not going to use all of it, but I've got some of it there if we need to add a little bit more and adjust the consistency at the end. Oh, the chili fire from earlier still got me. All right, so we're going to make sure that this has got really good heat to it, and then we'll add the mole paste to it. All right. And we're going to be stirring this pretty much the entire time that it's on here, very frequently to make sure that we do not get anything burned. So we have our chili paste. And then we are going to add in a little bit more of the chicken broth, the chocolate, bay leaves and avocado leaves, and the sugar. And then I will just continue cooking this, stirring it to make sure it doesn't burn on the bottom until it has reduced an amount. I'm not entirely sure. but it seems to me from what I was seeing in some different videos that it's going to have a nice kind of cohesive, rich, thick consistency to it. I shouldn't be seeing any of these looser areas. So we're gonna just kind of go touch and go from here and be tasting and adding a little bit as we go. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt right now, but aside from that, we will see you in maybe 30 or 40 minutes when the mole is done. At that point, we should be actually good to go. We can put this directly with the chicken and it'll be mealtime. All right, so the mole is just about coming to a boil here. I want to make sure that I'm stirring it frequently so that it doesn't burn, but at the same time also want to make sure that we melt all of the chocolate that was in here so that it can get into every part of the flavor. Now, the thickener for this dish is interesting because it is that piece of bread from earlier. So I am going to take it, just rip it up into a little mini hand blender here, add a little bit of the chicken broth, and then we're going to blend that down into a paste, which gets added into the mole. Then we will turn the temperature down to low, just give it on a very, very low simmer, and covered until we are ready to serve the chicken and eat dinner. So then, behave you. Little bit of broth in there. Need a little more broth to it. Oh, wow. The scent of the chocolate is really, really coming out now. Oh, wow. Got a pretty solid boil going here, so let's drop this temperature down. I'm gonna mix in this bread soup paste thickener. Well, I'm gonna mix that in, and then we are just going to let this simmer until the chicken is ready. And that will be our mole. I am going to set up the rice cooker in the background just to cook some basic rice. Nothing special there. Any recipe will do. Also not necessary. You can cook or you can eat this by itself, but wanted to have a little bit of extra to go with it. So that is our mole negro. Whenever I get the chicken done, I'm just going to go ahead and plate everything up. And so we're going to see you over for tastings in a few. Okay, so it simmered for another 45 minutes or so. And it's definitely got this really, really dark, almost black color. So I get where the name comes from,
Yeah,
for sure.
it's definitely black.
We did the optional thing and added a little bit of rice on it. Definitely don't need to, but I don't know. I have no idea what to expect here.
Neither do I, but you know what? It looks good, so let's give it a shot.
As a note, there are bones still in there, so just beware.
Right. That sauce is fascinating. It's sweet and chocolatey, but like in a way that somehow tastes good on chicken. Which is, I can't imagine, very typical for chocolate.
It just keeps going. I feel like right when I pin the flavor down, it's changing into another bit of flavor. I don't know. The chicken cooked really nicely that way.
It's got a very intense flavor. Dark and rich.
Mm-hmm. And it works with the savory. You definitely get the chocolate, though.
Mm-hmm. It's sweeter than I would have expected. Even though I know sugar was a part of this. It's really good, though. I really like it. Sweet, savory, chocolatey. I'm not really even into chocolate that much either, but like...
But you're right, fruity. And the only possible source of the fruity... Well, no, there's a little bit of raisins. But there's no way the amount of raisins that was in this attributed that much fruitiness.
There it is. The proof is in the Negro.
All right. We'll see you next time.
You should definitely try this one.
Absolutely. It's a unique experience in a good way.
Next time.